Rain slashed through the November darkness like shattered glass. A luxury sedan lay crumpled in a ditch, headlights flickering against the mud, driver's door hanging open like a broken wing. Noelle Ashford sat bleeding inside, trapped, watching car after car slow down, stare, and drive away. 3 vehicles passed, then 5. No one stopped. Then an old pickup truck growled to a halt, rust eating through its fenders, stopping where German engineering and Italian leather could not convince a single soul to brake. Wade Hollister climbed out, grease under his fingernails, holes in his work boots. He didn't ask her name. He didn't notice the designer label on her blazer. He just reached into the wreckage and pulled her free. What Wade brought home, the trailer sat at the edge of Cedar Falls Mobile Home Park, a faded blue rectangle that had seen better decades. Inside, the November wind found every crack and seam, whistling through gaps that no amount of weather stripping could fully seal. But Wade Hollister had made it a home. He had painted the kitchen cabinets a cheerful yellow when Penny was 3, and she had helped by adding her tiny handprints to the bottom corner of each door. Those handprints were still there, preserved under a coat of clear varnish, a reminder of smaller fingers and simpler times. Wade sat at his workbench near the back window, a single lamp casting a warm circle of light over the piece of oak in his hands. His fingers moved with practiced precision, the small knife carving away thin curls of wood that fell like whispers to the floor. The shape emerging from the block was a rabbit, long ears swept back, nose lifted as if catching a scent on the wind. It was meant to match the stuffed rabbit his daughter clutched every night, the one with the torn ear and the faded pink nose that she had named Mr. Buttons. Penny's 8th birthday was 3 weeks away. Wade couldn't afford the dollhouse. Through the thin wall, Wade could hear Penny's soft breathing, the rhythm of a child deep in dreamless sleep. She was his whole world, this little girl who had her mother's curls and her father's stubborn chin. 5 years ago, her mother had walked out the door with a suitcase and a mumbled explanation about needing to find herself. She had found herself, apparently, in California, with a man who sold real estate and drove a car that cost more than Wade would earn in 3 years. She sent birthday cards sometimes, Christmas presents that arrived in January. Penny had stopped asking when Mommy was coming home around the time she turned 5. Wade worked 2 jobs to keep them afloat. Days at Morrison's garage, where he had a reputation for diagnosing problems that stumped the other mechanics. Nights and weekends doing whatever needed doing, painting fences, fixing appliances, hauling scrap metal for cash. His hands were never clean, not really. The grease worked its way into the creases of his knuckles. They didn't rely on anyone. Wade had learned early that help came with strings, with judgment, with the pitying looks of people who thought they knew better. So he and Penny managed on their own. He braided her hair before school, packed her lunches, helped with her homework, read her bedtime stories. When she was sick, he stayed up all night with wet washcloths and children's fever medicine. When she was scared, he held her until the fear passed. They were a team, the 2 of them against the world. The storm hit Cedar Falls like a fist. Wade had finished at the Henderson place later than expected, a clogged downspout turning into a rotted fascia board that needed replacing before morning. By the time he climbed into his truck, the rain had already started, fat drops that splattered against the windshield like insects on a highway. By the time he reached Route 12, visibility had dropped to almost nothing. He drove slowly, both hands on the wheel, headlights barely cutting through the sheets of water. The road curved along the ridge above Miller's Creek, a route he had driven 1,000 times, but that felt treacherous and unfamiliar in the storm's fury. He thought about Penny, Safe in bed. He thought about the rabbit waiting on his workbench, almost finished, almost perfect. Then his headlights caught something wrong. A gap in the guardrail. Skid marks black against the wet pavement. And below, in the ditch, the twisted shape of a car that had no business being there. Wade pulled over, his hazard lights adding their orange pulse to the chaos of the storm. He grabbed the flashlight from his glove compartment and stepped out into the rain. The cold hit him like a slap. Within seconds, his jacket was soaked through, his jeans clinging to his legs. He half ran, half slid down the embankment, mud sucking at his boots, rain blinding him. The car was a Mercedes. He could see that now. Silver paint streaked with dirt and grass. Front end crumpled against an oak tree. The driver's door hung open, interior light flickering weakly. Noelle Ashford sat behind the wheel, her silk blouse dark with blood from a gash on her forehead. Her eyes were open, alert, fixed on Wade, with an expression that mixed fear and relief in equal measure. Her left leg was pinned beneath the crumpled dashboard, and her hands gripped the steering wheel, as if it were the only thing keeping her from flying apart. "Help me." Her voice was steady despite everything, the voice of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "My leg is stuck. I can't move it." Wade didn't hesitate. He assessed the damage with the quick eye of a man who had spent years figuring out, "I'm going to get you out," he said. "But I need you to stay still. Can you do that?" She nodded, a sharp jerk of her chin. Wade braced himself against the frame and pulled at the crumpled metal, using his weight and his mechanic's strength to create just enough space. Noelle gasped as the pressure released, then let Wade guide her out of the wreckage and into the rain. She couldn't put weight on her left ankle. Wade half carried her up the embankment, both of them slipping in the mud, both of them soaked to the bone. He got her into the passenger seat of his truck and cranked the heat as high as it would go. Then he pulled out his phone to call for help. No signal. Not even a single bar. "The storm," Wade said. "Towers must be down." He looked at Noelle, at the blood still seeping from her forehead, at the way she cradled her injured leg. "I can try to get you to the Wade thought about Penny, sleeping peacefully in their trailer. He thought about the first aid kit he kept under the bathroom sink, the one he had stocked carefully because he couldn't always afford doctor visits. He thought about the skills he had learned back when he worked construction, before the company went under, and he had. Noelle looked at him, really looked, taking in the grease-stained jacket, the work boots with their worn soles, the truck with its rust spots and cracked dashboard. Something flickered across her face, something Wade recognized from years of being on the receiving end of similar looks. Doubt. Judgment. The quick calculation of someone deciding whether he was safe. "I don't have much choice, do I?" she said. "No," Wade agreed quietly. "You don't." They drove in silence through the flooded roads, and when the trailer came into view, Wade saw Noelle's expression shift. Her lips pressed together. Her eyes narrowed slightly. She looked at his home the way someone might look at a stain on an expensive carpet. The trailer looked even smaller with a stranger inside it. Wade helped Noelle to the couch, propping her injured ankle on a pillow, while he gathered supplies from the bathroom. Gauze, antiseptic, bandages. He worked quickly and carefully, cleaning the gash on her forehead, with the same steady hands that carved wooden animals and rebuilt carburetors. His construction first aid training came back easily, the muscle memory of cleaning wounds and wrapping injuries. Noelle said nothing. Her eyes moved around the trailer, cataloging its contents with an expression Wade couldn't quite read. The yellow cabinets with their child's handprints, the drawings taped to the refrigerator, stick figures and rainbows in crayon. The small table with 2 mismatched chairs, the bookshelf overflowing with paperbacks and picture books. The small desk Wade had built himself for Penny's homework. Morning came gray and wet. the storm having settled into a steady rain that showed no signs of stopping. Wade had been up half the night. Penny woke first, as she always did, padding out of her room in her pajamas with Mr. Buttons dangling from one hand. She stopped short when she saw the stranger on the couch, her eyes going wide. "Daddy, who's that?" Wade scooped her up before she could get too close. "Someone who needed help last night, sweetheart. Her car got stuck in the storm, and she hurt her ankle." Noel was already stirring, drawn from sleep by their voices. Something shifted in Noel's face. Not quite a smile, but something softer than Wade had seen from her yet. "Hello, Penny. My head does hurt a little, yes. Daddy makes really good pancakes. Maybe pancakes would help." Penny looked up at Wade with hopeful eyes. "Can we make pancakes?" They ate at the small table, Penny chattering away between bites. Afterward, Noel finally spoke the words that had clearly been building since she woke. "I need to contact my office. I have a board meeting this morning. People are expecting me." Wade checked his phone. Still no signal. "Lines are still down. I'm sorry." "You don't I understand," Wade said calmly. "But the storm doesn't care about your meetings." Noel fell silent, her jaw tight. Later that morning, when Penny was occupied with her coloring books, Noel finally introduced herself properly. "I'm Noelle Ashford," she said, watching Wade's face carefully. "CEO of Ashford Toys." Wade paused in his coffee making. He had seen her face before, on the business magazines at the grocery store checkout. CEO of one of the largest toy companies in the country, worth more than everyone in Cedar Falls combined. "Most people." She stopped, seeming unsure how to continue. "Most people want something when they find out who I am. Money." "You make toys?" Penny asked, her eyes bright with interest. "Daddy told me you have a toy company." "Yes, I do." "That's so cool. Daddy makes toys too." Penny grabbed Noel's hand before anyone could stop her. Come see, come see." She led Noel, limping on her injured ankle, to the small shelf in Penny's room, where Wade's wooden menagerie stood in careful rows. The elephant with its trunk raised, the giraffe with spots burned into the wood, the lion with its proud mane, each one crafted with painstaking detail, each one a labor of love. Noel picked up the elephant, turning it over in her hands, her fingers tracing the carved detail. "These are incredible," she breathed. "The craftsmanship, the detail, the soul in these pieces. Who taught you to make these?" Wade had followed them, standing in the doorway. "Nobody. Taught myself. Books from the library, videos online when I could get Wi-Fi at the coffee shop in town. This is professional level work, museum quality." Noel set the elephant down carefully. Noel looked around the small room, at the drawings taped to the walls, at the bookshelf Wade had built by hand, at the small desk, slightly crooked but sturdy, where Penny did her homework. Everything in the trailer was modest, worn, clearly secondhand. But everything was also loved, cared for, made beautiful by attention and intention. She thought about her penthouse in Manhattan, $4 million of glass and steel, designer furniture no one ever sat on, art on the walls that she had bought because advisors told her it was a good investment. Empty rooms, cold silence, no one waiting for her when she came home. She watched Wade kneel beside Penny, helping her with a math problem, his voice patient and gentle, as he explained fractions. "Why did you stop? That night on the road. Other cars passed. I saw them slow down and look and drive away. But you stopped." Wade was quiet for a moment, his knife pausing mid-stroke. "Because it was the right thing to do. Because my father taught me that you help people who need help. Because leaving someone hurt and alone isn't something I could live with. Even though you didn't know who I was. Even though I could have been anyone." especially because of that." Wade looked at her. "You were a person in trouble. That was enough." Noelle was silent for a long moment. "I was driving because I couldn't go home. I signed papers yesterday. Layoff papers. 300 people. Right before Christmas." Her voice caught. "So I got in my car and I drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to move, to escape, to not be inside my empty penthouse with those papers and that decision." She laughed bitterly. "And then I crashed, and the only person who stopped to help me was a man who has less than almost anyone I've ever met." "Do you think it was the right decision?" Wade asked quietly. "The layoffs?" Noelle looked at him, her eyes wet. "I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. I've spent 20 years climbing to the top of a mountain, and now that I'm here, I look around, and I don't recognize anything. Not the company, not my life, not myself." They sat in silence for a while, Wade carving, Noelle watching. Then she asked, "Why do you make—" The third day, the rain continued, but lighter now. Penny recruited Noelle to help make a Christmas card for Wade. They sat at the tiny kitchen table with construction paper, crayons, scissors, and a jar of glitter that Penny had been hoarding since Halloween. "You have to help me," Penny instructed seriously. "I want to make it really special. Daddy works so hard." Noelle cut shapes, while Penny directed the artistic vision. Red paper for hearts, green for trees, gold glitter for stars. Their fingers got sticky with glue, colorful with marker ink. "Penny," Noelle said carefully, "can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you miss your mom?" Penny's small hands paused over her cutting. "Sometimes. But Mommy left when I was 3. I don't remember her very much, just that she smelled like flowers." She resumed cutting, her tongue poking out in concentration. "Mama left, but Daddy said it's okay, because we still have each other. That must have been hard. Daddy works a lot," Penny said matter-of-factly. 2 jobs. Sometimes he's really tired, but he always has time to read me stories at night. Always, even when he can barely keep his eyes open." She looked up. Penny considered this with the gravity of a tiny philosopher. "One time, some kids at school said we were poor. They said our house was ugly and our car was old. I came home crying." She paused, reaching for the red crayon. "But Daddy sat me down and told me something I never forgot." "What did he say?" Penny looked up, her eyes bright with the certainty of absolute truth. He said, "Being rich isn't about having lots of money. Being rich is about having lots of—" Noelle's hands had stopped moving. She stared at this 8-year-old girl who had just summarized everything that had gone wrong with her own life in a single sentence. She had spent 43 years accumulating wealth, power, success, and she had never once felt rich. On the 4th morning, the storm finally broke. Sunlight streamed through the trailer's windows, making everything look both shabbier and more beautiful. Wade checked his phone and found signal returning, 2 bars flickering to life. "You should be able to get through now," he said. "To your people." Noelle took the When they came back inside, Noelle's face had transformed. The corporate mask was back, harder than before. "The layoffs leaked," she said flatly. "It's all over the news. Stock is dropping. The board wants me back immediately for damage control. I'm sorry. A car is coming to pick me up. It will be here within the hour." The black sedan arrived exactly 53 minutes later, rolling slowly down the muddy road of the trailer park. The driver who emerged wore a crisp uniform and a neutral expression that couldn't quite hide his disdain as he surveyed the surroundings. His lip curled slightly at the sight of the trailer, the rusted trucks, the worn playground equipment. Wade saw it. Noelle emerged from the trailer, still wearing Wade's borrowed clothes, her designer blazer ruined beyond repair. Penny ran to her immediately, throwing small arms around her waist. "Do you have to go?" "I do, sweetheart. I have responsibilities." "Will you come back? Will you visit us?" Noelle hesitated, glancing at Wade, at the trailer, at the life so different from her own. "I don't know." Wade stepped forward. From his pocket he pulled. Noelle took the rabbit, her fingers closing around it like a lifeline. She looked at Wade, at his grease-stained hands and kind eyes, at this man who had given her shelter and food and something far more valuable. She looked down at her own hands. The ink stains from making Christmas cards with Penny were still there. For the first time in years, her hands had created something instead of just signing papers and shaking hands and pointing at spreadsheets. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Then she walked to the waiting car, climbed inside, and was gone. In the back seat, as the trailer disappeared behind her, Noelle didn't reach for her phone, didn't check her emails, didn't start preparing for the crisis waiting for her. Instead, she stared at the unfinished rabbit in her hands and thought about a little girl who believed she was rich because she had things to love. The board meeting was brutal. 12 people in a gleaming conference room, mahogany table polished to a mirror shine. "We need to get ahead of this," the chairman said. "Issue a statement expressing regret for any confusion. Emphasize that these decisions were made collectively, with the company's long-term health in mind." Noelle looked around the room, at the polished table, the expensive art on the walls, the crystal glasses filled with sparkling water, everything gleaming, everything perfect, everything utterly with. 300 people were going to lose their jobs right before Christmas because our profit margin dipped 2%. 2%. She stood, her hands flat on the gleaming table. "My grandfather started this company in a garage, carving wooden toys by hand. He built something real, something meaningful, and somewhere along the way, we forgot what that meant. This is business, not sentimentality. This is people's lives, and I'm not going to destroy them to protect a stock price." The room erupted. Protests, objections, threats. 3 board members resigned on the spot. The stock would drop. Analysts would panic. Business schools would use her as a cautionary tale. Noelle didn't care. For the first time in 20 years, she knew exactly what she was doing. 3 weeks passed. Wade finished the rabbit, placed it carefully on the shelf beside the others, and tried not to look at it too often. Life returned to normal. Garage shifts, side jobs, homework help, bedtime stories, carving by lamplight while Penny slept. Every day for the first week, Penny asked, "Did Miss Noelle call Daddy?" By the second week, she asked every other day. By the third, she had mostly stopped asking. And Wade told himself it was fine, that he had never expected anything, that rich people and poor people lived in different worlds, and that was just how things were. Then the letter arrived. It came in an envelope made of paper so thick and creamy that Wade almost didn't recognize it as mail. His name and address were handwritten in elegant script. He opened it at the kitchen table while Penny worked on her homework. "Dear Wade, not by saving me from that car. Anyone with basic decency would have done that. But by everything that came after. By letting me into your home. By showing me your daughter's drawings and your wooden animals and a life built on love instead of profit margins. By not treating me any differently when you found out who I was. By giving me that rabbit like it was the most natural thing in the world." I went back to the board meeting. They wanted me to apologize, to spin, to make excuses. Instead, I told them I was reversing the layoffs. I told them I was cutting executive bonuses, including my own, to cover the cost. I told them that Ashford Toys was going to start making things worth making again, or I would walk away and take my family's name with me. It didn't go over well. 3 board members resigned. The stock dropped 8%. Business reporters wrote articles about my breakdown. I'm not writing to offer you charity. I know you would refuse it. But I am writing to offer you a partnership. Your designs, your vision, produced by craftsmen who share your values and your skills. You would retain full creative control. Your name would be on every piece. I don't know if this is possible for you. I don't know if you want it. But I needed you to know that you made a difference. That one act of kindness on a rainy night rippled outward in ways you couldn't have imagined. If you're interested, call me. If you're not, that's okay too. Either way, thank you. Thank you for stopping when the rabbit sits on my desk. I look at it every day. It reminds me of what matters. With gratitude, Noel Wade read the letter 3 times. His hands were shaking. Daddy! Penny looked up from her homework. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, sweetheart. Wade's voice came out strange, thick. Nothing's wrong at all. That night, after Penny was asleep, Wade sat with the letter and thought about fear, about how it kept people small, about how it convinced them to stay in safe places and want safe things, and never. He picked up the phone. He dialed the number at the bottom of the letter, and when Noel answered, he said yes. 6 months later, the Hollister collection launched. Wade still lived in the trailer, still worked at the garage 3 days a week, still carved wooden animals at his workbench after Penny went to bed. But now his designs were being crafted by a team of artisans who shared his obsession with quality, with detail, with the kind of care that couldn't be rushed or replicated by machines. He had turned down every offer to mass produce, every suggestion to cut corners, every proposal that would have made him rich but hollowed out the meaning of what he created. The Hollister collection would remain small, handmade, special. That was the deal. That was the only. Penny was 9 now, and she had started learning to carve under her father's patient guidance. Her first attempt was a lumpy, lopsided shape that might have been a cat or might have been a potato. She worked on it for weeks, her small hands struggling with the tools, her tongue poking out in concentration. When Noel came to visit that spring, driving herself this time in a sensible car with no driver, Penny presented her creation solemnly. It's for you, she said. I made it myself. It's supposed to be a rabbit, like the one Daddy made you. But it didn't come out right. Noel held the misshapen figure like it was made of diamonds. It's perfect. They ate pizza that night. The 3 of them crowded around the tiny kitchen table. Noel had brought fancy wine, but ended up drinking root beer because that's what Penny wanted. They talked and laughed and argued about which wooden animal was the best. Penny insisted it was the giraffe because giraffes were tall and she wanted to be tall. Noel voted for the elephant because elephants never forgot. Wade just smiled and listened to them debate. Later, after Penny was in bed, Wade and Noel said, I've been thinking, Noel said, about what you told me that first night, about how the things you carve tell Penny she matters, that she's worth your time and effort and love. I remember. I never had that. Growing up, I mean. My parents gave me everything money could buy, but nothing money couldn't. She picked up the rabbit, turning it in the starlight. I think that's why I climbed so hard, why I accumulated so much. I was trying to fill a hole that couldn't be filled with money or success or power. And now? Noel looked at him, at the trailer, at the window where Penny's nightlight glowed softly. Now I have this, whatever this is, a strange little family that I found in a storm, a rabbit that reminds me what matters, a company that's finally making things worth making. She smiled, and it was the most genuine expression Wade had ever seen on her face. I think I might finally be rich. Wade reached over. I heard you talking. She padded over and climbed onto Wade's lap, settling in like she belonged there. What are you thinking about, Daddy? Wade looked at his daughter. At Noel, at the stars wheeling overhead, and the trailer that had always been enough, and the life he had built from nothing but love and stubbornness. "I'm thinking," he said softly, "that I'm the richest man in the world." Penny snuggled closer. Noel squeezed his hand, and above them, the sky stretched out forever, full of light. Outside the trailer, the stars continued their ancient dance. Inside, there was warmth and love and the sound of a little girl's sleepy breathing. On the shelf in Penny's room, the wooden menagerie, he hadn't expected anything in return, hadn't wanted anything. But life had surprised him. A friendship had grown from a storm. A purpose had emerged from kindness. A future had opened up that he had never dared to imagine. Penny shifted in his arms, already half asleep again. "Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart?" "I'm glad you stopped." Wade carried Penny back to her room, tucking her in with Mr. Buttons, brushing the curls from her forehead. When he returned to the porch, Noelle was still there, looking up at the sky. "Same time next month?" she asked. "Same time next month." She smiled. Then she walked to her car, climbed in, and drove away into the night. But this time, Wade knew she would be back. This time, leaving wasn't goodbye. He stood on the porch for a long moment. Penny's 9th birthday was coming. He had an idea for something special. A whole family of rabbits this time. A mother and father and baby, all carved from the same piece of oak. A family, together. He picked up his knife and began to carve. Outside, the stars blazed on. Inside, there was love and hope and the quiet sound of making. Some things, it turned out, couldn't be bought or sold or measured on any spreadsheet. Some things were simply beyond price. The end.